What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are in my kitchen today, and that's because I'm going to show you my #1 method to fillet fish. Right or wrong, it's the only way I do it. It's the fastest way I know and the best way that I know. So stick with me and I'm going to show you how I do it. Here we go. All right, the main tools you're going to need, I use an electric knife. This thing rocks. I highly recommend an electric knife. This is honestly probably the only way you can do my method. You're going to want a plate. You're going to want a nice big cutting board. You're gonna want your fish, obviously, and then you're gonna want some garbage bags for your guts to go in when you're all done filleting your fish. You're gonna want to be near a sink, and then I'm gonna use this vacuum sealer to package them when I'm all done, and so they stay good in my freezer for a long time.
All right, guys, we're going to get started here on our first perch of the night. Now, a couple tricks is to keep everything as close as you can to you, including the fish. You want to pull that fish up close to you on the edge of the cutting board. You'll see me pull it closer a few times, but you're going to start by making that first cut just behind his gill plate. That's where it's going to be soft. The gill plate's really hard, so you got to get just behind it. And then you're going to run that knife along the backbone all the way down to the tail. When you get to the tail, do not cut it off. You want to keep it on and flip it just like that. There's going to be some guts, maybe some eggs if it's a female, but you're going to want to keep it attached to the tail so that you have a nice little handle to grab onto there. I've seen a lot of people who just cut that whole piece right off and then you got nothing to hold on to. If you keep it on, you can hold on to it and then push that knife down into the board and take the skin off that way. As soon as you get that done, you can flip the fish over, do the same thing. Start right behind this gill plate, get right down to the backbone. Do not cut through the backbone or you're gonna have a really tough time. So you wanna get to the backbone and just walk that knife right down the backbone all the way to the tail. And when you get to the tail, stop right there. Don't cut it off. Like I said before, you're going to tuck that last piece under. And here you got a nice handle to hold on to. Get that knife down in there good in the tail meat. And don't be afraid to really bend your knife when you do this, so you can push it all the way down against the skin and get every last piece of meat that you possibly can. Now I like to cut off any eggs or guts that are sitting here, throw it in my garbage bag just like that. And now you got 2 awesome fillets right there. And your goal is to have just this super thin, skinny fish right there. You can tell I did a really good job on this one. Got basically all the meat off that I could, especially when you're cutting up little fish like this. You don't want to waste anything at all. So I did a really good job on this one. Now this part is quite a bit trickier. This takes some skill, a little finesse and practice, is getting the ribs out. So you're going to start by taking your knife right behind the ribs. Try and get your entire knife behind the entire set of ribs. And you're going to cut behind them and just run your knife along behind the ribs. And especially on a perch, you can get some good rib meat, some meat behind the ribs here that you can eat. It's a little harder on skinnier fish like bluegill and crappie, but on perch you can get some good meat behind the ribs. We're going to do it again on this one. Just got to do your best to hold on to the fish. There's just not a good handle to hold on to. You're going to put your knife behind those ribs. You're going to go down below it and just kind of ride those ribs off until they come right off. Like I said, this takes kind of a lot of practice, so don't be afraid when you don't do it very well the first time. It takes a lot of practice to get it right. So I think I have 5 perch here total that I'm going to cut up today, and we're just going to zip through all these ones. I do this exact same process for every single one. And I think my last little bit of advice for when you're cutting up these fish is to just let your electric knife do the work. I think that's why I like using an electric knife so much, is because I don't have to put a lot of pressure on this fish. It's a lot safer, a lot less likely for me to cut myself when I'm using this electric knife, because the knife does all the work for me. I get to put just minimal amounts of pressure on these fish and the knife slices through perfectly. So that's why I really like using an electric knife. It allows you to cut up a lot of fish very quickly. So I'm just going to keep cutting up these fish and we'll get back to it in a second. All right, so now you got your fish cut up and you got a nice fresh plate here of little perch and crappie fillets, which is awesome. Now is your chance to wash them off. I like to use really cold water. Make sure you wash off every last little thing that you can on these fillets. Get all the blood off, get any scales, any guts, everything that you possibly can, because you are preparing these to package. Unless you're going to eat them right away, which still you want to get it as clean as possible because you're about to eat them. So, yep, run it under some very cold water. Clean them off as well as you can. I just like to slap them on the plate here again until we're ready to package them.
All right, guys, just got done cutting up those fish, so we got us a nice plate of perch and crappie here, which is awesome, but they're not quite ready to be packaged just yet. The next step is to dry them in some form. Mainly when you're using a vacuum sealer like this, if you don't dry them, it won't create a good seal. It'll be too wet, it'll suck the water out, and it just won't seal well, and then you're gonna have a problem. So I would much rather use paper towel, but I don't have any today. So I'm gonna use this just kind of little towel right here, and we're gonna dry them out, and they're gonna be ready to be packaged. All right, guys, we're just finishing up here. Got my perch and crappie all packaged up and labeled and ready to go in the freezer so we can eat it in the future. I'll tell you what, investing in one of these vacuum sealers is just a great idea. Every type of meat that I vacuum seal in here lasts forever. I mean, it can go years in your freezer without getting much to any freezer burn at all. So highly recommend. I mean, this is a cheap one. This is some cheap little Ziploc one I bought from Menards or something. I don't even remember. And then you just gotta buy the try and get the rolls of these vacuum seal packages, because then you cut them yourself and you can usually get more for less. So I highly recommend doing that. The ones that are not pre-cut, you cut them, you seal them, ready to go, save a lot of money. That's gonna do it for me here today. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you take these tips and practice them yourself in the kitchen. I got some cleanup to do now. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.